collaboration and compromise, and that's what we've done today.
Yep, we have a deal.
And I think it's a pretty strong deal that both sides can be satisfied with. It's truly a compromise. So from the House's perspective, and I know that, one of our priorities was additional sort of funding for the blueprint, which is, our transformative education plan in the state of Maryland to make sure that special needs kids and concentration of poverty are taken care of in the out years. So this plan gets us through fiscal 27. So that means we're solvent in the blueprint for another 3 years. It also reinvests in the blueprint in one of the areas of concern on pre-K. We did not have enough providers really to reach the market that we were looking for. So we reinvested back in provider rates, going from $13,000 to $20,000 in provider rates, which we think is a really important tenet. It also includes about $80 to $90 million in tax for a myriad of tobacco products, including cigarettes, smokeless tobacco, and chew and the like. We've also been working on the transportation portion of this, and that's gotten certainly a lot of press coverage over the last few days. We landed on a number of two major components of this. The first number was $350 million, and that's revenue that will be generated right now to deal with our most pressing needs. And Mr. Chairman, I know that that's been a priority for you to make sure that whatever money we came up with, that we knew what we were going to spend it on. So I don't know if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, first off, I think we're in a great position to be saying that we are in agreement as houses, not on just the details of what we have here, but broadly speaking, we have been in agreement all along on the big picture, on the blueprint, where we both recognize the importance and the desire to fulfill our commitments. And as well on transportation. There's a lot of component parts to the transportation and what we believe we're going to be able to tell the residents of Maryland that are going to move forward. Things like highway user fund. We're going to fund it at the full level that the legislature had.
Which, just to be clear for those who are less familiar with how we use it, that's roads and bridges for our local counties and municipalities so that they can repave and fill potholes and do the necessary work they need to keep our local transportation system afloat.
And speaking of local transportation system, we're also going to ensure that funding for the local transit system is available there. There's going to be money for additional transit workers. There's going to be money for additional road projects that might have been eliminated had we not come to this agreement. So all those component parts. One of the other things that I think we're very proud of is that we've set aside money. We're asking the governor to set aside money within this program to fund those issues that improve transportation around the Beltway because of the tragedy of the Francis Scott Key Bridge.
The Baltimore Beltway, the Secretary has told both houses that some of these ancillary needs, not just rebuilding the bridge, but needs like shifting improvements on 695 to night work, which requires differential pay. Those are things that we can't necessarily count on the federal government to provide, so we hope this money...
Improvements at the Colgate Bridge.
Colgate Bridge is the same sort of factor.
Right. So all those components we're able to move forward with. And I think we're all proud that we were able to work together to get to that place.
With any compromise, what keeps the two sides together are really our shared values, and I've been talking about that all session. I've been asked, the Senate is in a different posture than you. How do you think you'll come together? And what I've said time and again is I know we'll come together because we share values. And I think that's what you're seeing today. We share the values of keeping our commitment to public education. We share our values of making sure we have a sustainable and robust transportation system. Those shared values really, I think, brought us together over the last few days to have the compromise you've seen before us. The remaining component, I think, is we will continue training. That was a point that was important to both sides. That we
Training being, of course, the transportation committee that we developed last year, met all last year, made a few recommendations prior to this session, which we incorporated, but we'll continue for another year.
And the President of the Senate has made it very clear to us, and we appreciate the fact that we do have more challenges ahead, and we need to tackle those next session. And I think we intend to do that through the work of trade. We know that we have major projects that maybe aren't going to be covered by the money we've come up with here. Projects like Red Line, American Legion Bridge, and those will be really the focus of trade over the next year with an eye to coming back to come up with long-term solutions next year on those bigger projects.
Top line revenue increase from when the budget was introduced to now.
350, about 320 to 350 million for transportation. We're waiting on DLS to score those numbers, so that's why we're sort of a rough estimate.
And just to be clear, it's about a 3-year movement that increases from this year on to the 27.
A 3-year plan that ramps up. The ramp up number in the third year, 320 to 350, depending on DLS's scoring of it, and about 80 to 90, depending on the scoring of the tobacco revenue piece. And now we go directly to Blueprint. We've also regained some revenue, I wouldn't call it revenue, but we've recycled some unnecessary money back into the Blueprint. And that sort of recycling of money and the new revenue coming in is what has really enabled us to make sure that the Blueprint, which is really important, our education plan, is funded for the next 3 years. So it'll be the new term before we have any shortfalls in our Blueprint fund, which is really important, I think, to both sides.
So can you walk us through those, it sounds like 2 pots of revenue, one tobacco, nicotine, the other one transportation related. What are the various fees or taxes that are going to be?
So maybe between the two of us, without notes, we can get them all right. But I know that there is revenue for
registration.
Registration's one of the bigger.
And let's be clear about that too to begin with. There's component parts even to the registration. As you know, we've been talking about trauma for a while. A major part of that is ensuring that our trauma system has the money to move out into the future for over a decade or more. And that was a big component of adding those funds through registration.
We have one of the best trauma systems in the entire world. And so this is one of the pieces we were so proud to come together on to make sure this trauma system, which was running short on funding, and really saves lives every single day in the state, is funded moving forward. That's part of the reg fee. Some of that will go to trauma, some will go to the Transportation Trust Fund. EV fee that we've seen bouncing around, there's the highway worker safety bill that the Lieutenant Governor has really made
Now, there's a version of that just came out of the Senate. And I think we're going to be using that bill
absolutely
as the mechanism to move forward. And it increases fines as people speed at higher levels.
And those fines will go directly to transportation rather than all of the other things that they had talked about in the original bill?
I think there is a component of that goes to state police. So when you see the bill, the component that goes to state police, I think will remain there, and the rest will go to Transportation Trust Fund. I think it's around $40 billion just for Transportation Trust Fund.
Is the component for vehicle registration based on a rejiggering of weight classes?
Yes, I think that was a really important, not just revenue generating, but policy position for the General Assembly that we're taking. That higher weighted vehicles put more wear and tear on our roads and should be paying a higher fee, in effect user fee, for sort of the maintenance of those roads. And that's something that will be in our.
What happened is there was a discussion at one point of the ride-hailing service,
Yeah, the
statewide
Uber.
fee, and then also the package delivery fee.
Package delivery is not in here.
No, actually.
What about the ride-hailing?
It is.
How are did you guys make any accommodations? You're raising registration fees for owners of electric vehicles and hybrid vehicles to kind of get them in line. Did you guys come closer to the House or the Senate position? But also when you're doing these new weight classes, electric vehicles are heavier than gas-powered vehicles. So was any accommodation made for the idea that they're also going to be paying extra in registration fees?
Yes. Very insightful. Yeah, actually.
That's my one for the session.
No, it's good. I mean, so because of that, and because we have the weight classes, we're going to go with the House version of the surcharge because it's a little lower. But given the fact that the red fee is a little higher for the heavier vehicles, that's where we see the makeup.
We believe that by and large, that the EV fee with the reg and the EV fee are still sort of tantamount to what you would pay in gas tax over the course of a year.
How close would those two get to the House, to the Senate version, which was the higher registration fee for EVs?
We have to probably
Yeah, we'd have to-
get back to you on that. We'll, you know, in the coming days, we'll have the DLS scoring and we'll report out.
What is the actual EV fee though? Just that, is it 125? The basic one?
That was right.
Your
Courtney, EV fee was 125?
I'm sorry?
What was the EV fee, 125? EV fee was 125?
125 is what I heard.
Yeah.
And for hybrids?
It would, do we have the show? Which we just
We don't have the sheet.
I know we get that.
Oh, we like paper.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah,
give you the
you'll
sheet.
get all.
We'll give you the sheet.
You'll get, this is the beginning. Tomorrow, we'll have the actual conference at 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
So we'll have more paper for everyone.
This is sort of more to
There's a lot of component parts to this, but we have mapped it all out. And all of that detail we can make clear.
We have a one-pager.
How impactful was the key bridge collapse to your negotiations? You're in the middle of the back and forth discussion. Did it change anything in those last couple of days?
I mean, I don't know that it changed per se the overarching decisions that we had to make. Like, as I mentioned earlier, we decided that we needed to make sure that there were revenues there, as the chairman said, for things like the overnight workers and things like that, and the Colgate Bridge. So it plays a role, right? And when I think about the Train Commission, and of course I'm incredibly grateful to President Biden and their administration for stepping up to cover costs of the bridge. We need to follow that over the coming days. We need to know exactly what's going to be coming from the federal government. All that will play into, and we'll have all those discussions and be able to have that in the Train Commission. So,
Yeah, I guess let me put it this way. We had serious transportation challenges before the tragedy at the bridge. Those challenges certainly did not get any easier after the bridge collapse.
I know that this probably won't be part of the BRFA, but is there some sort of a gentleman's agreement or a handshake agreement to come back next session and take an earnest look between the two chambers at things like corporate reporting and iGaming, or are those still off the table in the Senate?
I think you can safely say, and the chairman can sort of step in, that we do, and I think you're going to hear this from the Senate President, from the Senate, that we do believe that we need to deal with major transportation projects next session, and that's why you'll see train continue for another year. Beyond that, on general funds, I don't think that there's any agreement on combined reporting or the like. On combined reporting, I'll just say, the House will continue to sort of advance combined reporting, closing that corporate loophole. I know the governor, during the campaign, expressed support for it, and so, that's something that maybe will be up for negotiation next year.
I mean, look, we're going to look at this the way we've been looking at it, thoughtfully, looking at every component part of what we need to accomplish as a state. And so, we're going to work to a solution, period. And whatever that solution is, we're going to work together.
Was there any thought?
Simple as that.
Was there any thought given to a work group in the interim to take a look at revenue sources for operating between now and when we come back in 25?
We didn't have that discussion because the two pressing needs from our perspective were making sure we had a solvent public education fund, which we addressed right now in here, and making sure that we addressed our needs on transportation. I think we've done that together with continuing the work of Train to look at major projects. Those are the sort of solutions we had on the table for now. We understand that there are probably things that will need to be addressed every session, but
You don't need legislation to do it. Would there be a willingness to get together and do it in the
I
interim?
talk almost every
All the
week.
time.
No.
All the time.
And these issues are at the front of every time we talk, these issues about revenue, about sort of our needs. Literally every single time we talk.
Yeah, literally, when we reach out to the public and suggest that something needs to get done, we recognize that there are costs associated with it. We've got to make sure that we're telling folks exactly what we're going to accomplish. And that process is ongoing. And it will continue to go from today onward because we've got real things and important things to do.
And that's why we emphasize that here today. What have we actually accomplished with these revenues, right, in this sort of compromise? And the things that the chair sort of delineated on transportation, the things that I've emphasized on public education, and the things that we've addressed today.
And now I just want to clarify two things. Full legalization of the internet gambling on the table for this year, correct?
Yes.
And then, while many people will get hit by some of these fees, because most Marylanders have a car, there's no direct broad-based income tax or broad-based, revenue increase on the majority of Marylanders in this package.
Correct.
And the two toll proposals are still completely off the table?
Yeah, I think in light of the tragedy we've seen and the loss in tolling we're gonna see, this isn't the right time for that.
What's the specific tobacco? Is it like $1 a pack or something?
$1.25 a pack. And the smokeless tobacco and the vaping are a little more complex than just the retail.
But $1.25 a pack increase, tax increase.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Thank you.